So this is the next question that we have, guys. In this question, we are given that there is a line whose slope is minus 1 upon 6, right? So there is one line k, any line k, and its slope is given to be negative of 1 upon 6, right? And we have to tell that the line k must intersect which one of these, right? Uh, the point here to note is that firstly, we have to select all that apply. So there can be multiple options in this. Second point, the word must is here. Whenever the word must is there, be very careful. That means that condition should be satisfied in every possible case, right? That is why the word must is written, right? Okay, now tell me one thing, guys. For example, this is the xy axis, right? Now we know that the slope of the line is negative of 1 upon 6, right? Let's remove 1 by 6 for 1 second because we are concerned with that the slope is negative. Now that can be minus 1 upon 6, minus 2 upon 3, minus 4, minus whatever, right? But what we are concerned is that the slope of the line is negative, right? Okay. Now tell me one thing, that what is the slope of a line? Slope of the line is tan theta. So basically, what I mean by that is, for example, if this is a line, right? Or let's say this is the xy axis and this is some line, right? This is the xy axis and this is a line. So what we see is the angle, right? The line makes what angle with the x-axis? The x-axis is this, the line is this, right? So we are concerned with this angle, this. The line, the angle between the line and the x-axis. For example, this is theta, right? So the slope of the line becomes tan theta. The slope is what? The slope is tan theta, right? Now tell me one thing. What is this angle? This angle is less than 90 degree, right? Because we measure the angle this ways, right? So for example, if we draw a perpendicular, this angle will be 90, this angle will be 90, right? So obviously this angle is less than 90, right? This entire angle is 90. So this angle will obviously be less than 90, right? So tan theta will be positive. And for example, if we have a line like this is the line, right? So what is the angle over here? The angle over here is basically this entire, because this is the line and this is the x-axis. So the angle between these two, this is the angle, right? Right. Now tell me one thing. What is this angle? This angle is greater than 90, because what is 90? 90 will be this, and this angle is what? 90 plus this. So basically what I mean is that this angle is greater than 90 degree, right? So that means, and tan of anything greater than 90 is negative. You can just think like that. So I'll just conclude in very simple terms. What I mean is that, for example, this is xy axis, right? Now I will draw a few lines. Tell me if it's the slope is positive or negative. This is one line, right? This is one line. This is one line. Uh, this is one line, right? So let's talk about this line. Talking about this line, what is the slope? The slope is positive because this is an acute angle. Acute angle meaning less than 90. In that way, in that case, the slope will be positive, right? Now tell me for this angle, for this line. For this line also, this angle is acute, which is less than 90. So the slope will again be positive. Okay. Now tell me for this line. For this line, the angle is this, complete, this angle. Since this angle is greater than 90, right? So the slope will be negative. Okay. Similarly for this line, the theta is what? The theta is this, right? Which is greater than 90 degree. So the slope will be negative. So I hope this should give you a good indication of how do we find out the slope, right? Okay. Perfect. Now tell me one thing, that in the question we are given that the slope of line is negative, right? So that means if the slope is negative, the line should be something like this, right? Because in this case, the slope, the theta is greater than 90, so slope will be negative. Or it can be something like this, right? Or it can be something like this, or it can be something like this, something like this. Because in all these cases, if you see this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, all of these angles are greater than 90. So in that case, the slope will be negative. So we are satisfying this given condition, right? Now tell me one thing, if you see this line, right? Now this is the first quadrant, this is the second quadrant, this is the third quadrant, and this is the fourth quadrant, right? So if you see this line, the topmost line, which all quadrants is this line passing through? This line is passing through the first quadrant, this line is passing through the second quadrant, this line is also passing through the fourth quadrant, right? So the first line is passing through the first quadrant, the second quadrant, and the fourth quadrant, right? Okay. Now tell me for this line. Similarly for this line also, this line is passing through the first quadrant, the second quadrant, and the fourth quadrant, right? Okay. Similarly for this line is also passing through the second quadrant, the first quadrant, and the fourth quadrant, right? Okay. Tell me about this line now. This line. So this line is passing through the second quadrant, the third quadrant, and the fourth quadrant, right? Second, third, fourth, right? And similarly, this line is also passing through second, third, and fourth, right? So what I mean over here is that this is just for explaining you, but what I mean over here is that out of all these different possible lines, sometimes the line passes through 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. But in all these cases, the line will always pass through the second quadrant and the fourth quadrant. The second and the fourth, second and the fourth, second and the fourth, second and the fourth, second and the fourth. Irrespective of whichever line you take, whose slope is negative, because we have to take the slope negative, right? So you take any line with a negative slope, it will always pass through second or fourth. Sometimes it can pass to first quadrant, sometimes it may pass through third quadrant, right? But not always. For example, in this case, the line is not passing through the first quadrant, right? Similarly, in this case, the line is not passing through the third quadrant. But in whichever case you take, the line with a negative slope will always pass through second and the fourth quadrant, right? So we were asked that the line K must intersect which all quadrants, right? Because the word must is here, that means irrespective of whichever case we take, that should always hold true. So what is the answer? The answer is second and the fourth, because any case you take, the line will always pass through second and the fourth quadrant. So that is why the answer becomes the second and the fourth option, which is a quadrant 2 and the quadrant 4. I hope this should be clear. If you do it in the exam, you'll be able to do it very quickly. I just explained you in little detail, but I hope the concept should be clear.